is the ability and our social skills and our ability to be able to relate and be empathetic, because no matter how fast our internet is and how many algorithms we have, AI isn't going to be able to replace that. So that's going to be the dividend, being able to work in the soft skills in all sectors of the economy is going to make the big difference. So that's coming from one of the major business gurus out there. So it's not, and it's considered a soft skill, but soft is hard, as is one of his phrases as well, because being empathetic is difficult. And you know, I'm in the middle. For example, yesterday I had over half of my staff come into an optional professional development summer Pro D. They get an new day in the thing, but only half of our staff. So I have about 50 staff members there. Just as we're about to go in, after our conference call with Liz and Jess, I have a staff member who's coming back off of cancer. And he literally came into my office, started weeping and say, I can't do this. I literally cannot do this. I have to take more time. Maybe I'm coming back second semester. And if he didn't feel comfortable enough to come back into my office and do that, who knows where he would have been or what we were doing. And we scrambled all day yesterday, tried to find staffing and make sure we have a TOC for him on Tuesday and all of these things. So some of these skills, you really got to open up so you get the information from your teachers and your staff. So it is something that we have to work on. And I know, you know, we've been in the business a long time and it actually hasn't always been emphasized. It hasn't been one of those skills. We'd much rather teach us how to interview and do other things. But this is the big skill moving forward.
I have such a vivid memory of when I was a principal in my second school. And it was a big school and a very highly engaged staff and parent community. And we had a significant budget cut that year in Vancouver. And there were quite a few teachers that were going to be laid off. And I had to have those conversations with people, but very few. And I had about 15 people on my staff that I needed to talk to. And as I was telling the staff about the general budget information, I was so conscious of how I knew their lives. I knew their stories. I knew about their kids. I knew that somebody was going to university, that I got so emotional in the meeting that, you know, I was really choked up and found it hard to talk. And I thought, this is not very professional. That was what was going on inside of me. And I thought, I got to pull myself together. Well, that shifted my relationship with a lot of staff because they saw me as really caring for them and really putting their needs first. And I didn't plan it that way. It wasn't planned. It was a great learning moment for me. And then they pulled together with me to help support these people because they knew that this must be fairly significant for me to be so impacted, which it was, to have to tell so many people that they didn't have a job next year. Yeah.
So it helps with those essential questions, or we call them difficult questions sometimes. Yeah. It certainly helps those, make them a little bit easier.
So we wanted to give you again a chance to work in your triads. We know a few people are not able to be with us today, so Liz has made some adjustments to our groups. I don't know if they know yet or they can see which group they might be in yet, but we've got two general questions for you to talk about in your triad group. First is when have you experienced feeling really listened to in your role as a school leader? And it doesn't have to be in a school-based admin. It could have been you're in a teaching role. And what impact did that have on your thinking and feelings when you were sharing maybe a success or a challenge or something? And then what are some strategies you could use or have used to assist you with developing your empathy listening skills? And so we're defining that by being fully present and really focused on the listening rather than the talking. So think about it in terms of with a staff member or with parents or students, what works for you. So if you could, we're going to give them, how we're doing with time.
Looks like
25 minutes.
Yeah. So about 10 minutes. Okay, we're going to give you 10 minutes to connect in your triad groups. Liz, how can we guide them with which group they're in?
They will be in a group. Corinthians to 4. Everybody has either 2 or 3.
Okay. So we'll connect back with you in 10 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Now I am.
Welcome back, everyone. We didn't, nice to see you, Will. Glad you could join us. We didn't sort of ask you to have someone be ready to kind of share out maybe some ideas that came up in your triad conversations. And again, thanks for being flexible for adjusting groups on the fly, which what we have to do at our end when some people aren't able to join us. So if there's anyone willing to, I think we were in 4 rooms, weren't we, Liz? 3 rooms. Okay, so how about room number 1?
No, 2.
Sorry, room number 2. Nobody was in room number 1. Room number 2. Is there someone willing to just share just what the kind of general conversation was, some of the ideas that came up about
Brittany, Peter.
things that work? Brittany, did you?
Brittany or Peter?
Brittany or Peter?
Or Brett?
Or Brett? Brett. Okay, Brett, thank you.
Unmute.
If you can unmute, that would be great.
Yep.
Okay.
So we, I guess first, Denise, what you said earlier was like exactly the same challenges that I have. So like getting yourself relaxed so that you can listen, getting other people relaxed so that they can listen. So Brittany brought up a great question, like what do you do when someone's really excited? How do you get them calmed down so that you can hear them and they can hear you? And I said, like, you just almost be a kindergarten teacher, right? Like kind of delay, deflect, distract for a few minutes. Like, like I have to go to the printer and grab this thing that I printed off, or I have to just let me finish my thought in my notebook here. I was working on something. Can you just wait here? I'll happily talk to you. I just need like another minute or two. And that quite often brings down the tension, brings down the excitement and anxiety, and lets people kind of take a deep breath or two. And then you can actually have that conversation that you need to have. Or quite often we're walking out the door, going to do something else, and someone will kind of catch you on your way, and they'll ask that obvious question, are you busy? You can't really say yes, but what you can say is, I'm on my way to something else, I'm meeting with another teacher, or I have to go see a student. Can you come back at this time, or can you come back? Let's schedule a time, and then that gives people that time to relax. And quite often they come to a solution on their own, and then they'll respond to you or come in and say, you know what, I figured things out. I talked to somebody else. What was urgent or extremely important at that time wasn't as big a deal as I thought it was. But thank you for scheduling a time to follow up with me, something like that.
Yeah, I know Andrea has some great things to add around that, because it was really talked about a lot in the coaching training. But I think those moments are opportunities. I remember Jordan, who's the superintendent in Surrey, used to say to me all the time, you have more time than you think. You always have more time than you think. And that's one of my takeaways from his leadership. And it's how do you sometimes create that space in the moment, or like you just gave a great example, how do you delay it a bit? And sometimes, but it still keeps the door open to that relationship and that empathy to be developed. So thank you so much for sharing that. Andrea.
One of the things that I was hearing in that was that a lot of that's about rapport. And so when somebody comes up to you and they're heightened, you want to match a little bit of their body language, but not head on. You want to match their body language. If somebody comes in and they're big and they're angry, you want to kind of stand to the side and not go head on to them. There are some pieces to that. And then you want to guide them towards a seat. And then show, because you can help co-regulate in that moment. And really what you're trying to do is, probably your best idea is to stay quiet, listen, but focus on your breathing. And if you can then start to match their breathing and then slow your breathing down versus matching their voice and their tone. You don't want to match heightened with heightened. You want to sort of subtly show you're in rapport with them and then start towards bringing that down. And some of that can be all done with body language and your breath. and a nod, but nothing face to face, always on a bit of an angle to them.
And it might be great to see if we can find some articles, because that was talked about a lot in the coaching training that Andrea's done a lot of, to support you to have some of those key things to remember, because we practiced it the last 2 days, because so much of the research around communication is, I think it's about 95% is nonverbal. Only 5% of what you say is really sort of communicated. It's your body language, your facial expressions. So it's kind of, I used to have a bit of a cheat sheet in my office when I was starting to develop some of those skills, and just to remind me of some of those things. So
yeah, in our neck of the woods, we have to be worried about aggravated students and parents as well, not only teachers, but parents as well. So if you walk into my office, you'll probably hear some sort of soft jazz, ideally, or some symphony, or just playing softly in the background. So when there is, I hear the screaming out in the office area, when my door is partially closed, I can actually bring them in. And even that little bit of music, that little change in environment, doing the same strategies. You don't walk into a gang of kids and straight on with your fist clenched. You kind of show, you open up, and you walk, and you know, around all those tough kids. So there are all these strategies where you want to, and kind of, you know, the old term, seek first to understand and then to be understood, but lots of seeking first to understand, and just being, and I even have told some of my VPs, use Cesar Millan. Anybody know who Cesar Millan is? He's the dog whisperer. Yeah. So calm and assertive, right? So you want to be, just stay calm, because they start, as you were saying, start playing off of your body language and your energy. And if any of you have dogs, you know they play off your energy all the time. So you want to be calm and assertive, and that's the first steps.
Great.
One thing I do, one little trick I've now started pushing is, I believe everything can be solved with a cup of tea. So I usually will.
You got it. I agree.
Is that the British background in you, Richard?
I don't know.
Besides, if they're holding something hot, they're usually still.
There you go.
All right, we probably need to move on.
Well, we have 2 other groups, so we haven't given a chance.
All right, we're running out of time.
Well, maybe I'll just open.
Okay.
I know we're getting tight on time, but from the other 2 groups, we don't want anyone not to be heard. Were there any additional points, anybody from room 3 or 4 that they'd like to share before we move on?
Or they can type it in.
Or they can type it in for everyone to see, because we don't want to miss out on anybody's good ideas. So, okay, thank you.
One of the things that we wanted to, I just want to quickly review with you, and that's the Better Educate piece. And that piece is just going to come up right now, and you can see my profile there. Liz went really quick through it last week. It was literally, you guys were one of the first ones to see it. It came out the night before we went on air with you guys. So we just want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. And if you have any questions regarding around this, it's slick. I was playing with it for the first time today, and it's a major upgrade. It's version 2.0, but it is a major upgrade in all the areas. And I was showing some of my colleagues some of this, and really all you have to do to get into your self-assessment or wherever you want to go is just get into your profile, because it is yours. And then you can see the growth inventory, the self-assessment, the portfolio, all the things that you can get into. And it's so simple to navigate. And some of you have already done it. Some of you are going to go through it. But the little owls there, that's the BCP owl. And you can just start your self-assessment. And I was playing with it a little bit as well. And you can, again, just print that off. But the key piece is, if you have any questions, just let us know. This does help us with the direction that we want to go. If you're a P working with the VPs, or if you're working with your P and you're a VP and you want to do a basic, quick assessment and find out what you want to work on, because I know some of the leadership standards are some of the things that you are wanting to dive deeper into. This is a good first step that you can get us, and we thank the ones who have already done it. It won't take you that long. I know everything right now we're asking you to do, time is the key critical factor. We're getting pulled in multiple directions, but this really is a simple piece that quickly allows you to do some reflective self-assessment. It, like I said, it's really slick, it's easy, and away you go. I'm only averaging a 3 right now, but I have to go back and do some more work. So check it out.
It'll help us when we move into the coaching, which is what we're going to do in the next couple months, with working with you individually to see your initial self-assessment, where you really are targeting your focus. So that'll help us, I think, be able to promote your thinking when we have our coaching calls.
When I go through these, each time I have that that dual feeling of, I think that my own skill set might be high in this one area, but when I look at, I'm in a new setting, I'm in a new group, I have to adjust to that new group.
Yep.
So I really rate myself sometimes differently because I'm figuring out my new environment, my new landscape, or this group, we're struggling with us feeling that we're successful as communicators. And so I kind of make sure that it has the contextual piece built in.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't just simply that this is, I know all about community building. It's how are we doing in this setting with community building? What is it that my context needs?
Right. And I think one of the other features that I think Liz showed us, and I can't remember if she showed you, but if you want to go in ethical leadership, and you know that some of it needs a little bit of work because you haven't worked in that area for a while, or what is that decision-making piece, all you have to go, because this is such a rich document that we've all been sharing, you just kind of type up in the search, ethical leadership, and all the articles that relate to ethical leadership will come up for you from the whole site. So I just spelled ethical wrong. Sorry, that's my typing skills. Anyways, you get the point. You get the, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ethical, there we go. And away you go. And all of a sudden it pulls up all the short course stuff that they have, any other pieces that are talking about. So it's a quick resource. If you want to know timetables or teacher evaluations or anything like that, just put it in the old search bar and it comes up, because a lot of us have uploaded and shared our documents up on here.
We're just not sure exactly what they see.
Yeah.
And so,
Any questions along those lines, don't hesitate to ask, and hopefully you'll find some time to play with that. And the only way to really understand it, like anything else, is just to go on it and to play with it.
Yeah. And so if they have extra questions around that, Peter, to you?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Or Aubrey.
Or Anne-Marie.
All right.
So if you have questions about how to navigate, better educate, you can try asking each of us. But Peter and Anne-Marie are on it and quite fluent. I've been getting on it and navigating my way through and trying to get resources up for you. And so if there is something you can't find in a topic you can't find, let us know and we can try and search and post some stuff up too. We're really hoping you'll do your self-assessment. There's a short one and a long one. We're really hoping that we'll see the initial self-assessments. So moving into that same relational leadership strand, there's a piece to the relational leadership standard that talks about your metacognitive capacity as a leader. And that's how you're examining your values, your knowledge, and your skills that impact your effectiveness as an educational leader. And that's that dance between your context and your skills, because every context asks different things of you. And so it's having that ability to get up onto the balcony and say, okay, how am I doing with this? What are the values that I'm living into? How am I showing my values? What knowledge and skills do I have to bring to the table? Or what knowledge and skills might I need, right? And in the leadership standards, there are a couple of reflective questions that you can ask yourself. And this is all part of the leadership standards. What's your process for reflection? So how do you just keep charging through, or do you stop after a staff meeting and say, okay, what went well, what didn't go well? What do I need more of? What do I need less of? Or are there touchbacks that you do on a regular basis? Do you set goals for the week, or do you do it at the end of the week when you're doing a week at a glance? How do you identify your strengths and your areas of growth? Are you getting feedback from colleagues, or are you having a coaching conversation with someone? Are you doing a personal self-assessment, or do you have a journal? What is the way that you get feedback on your areas of growth? And how do you demonstrate your ongoing commitment to your own leadership growth? And what things do you give yourself so that you can grow as a leader? What opportunities do you give yourself? And to support you in looking at how to set goals and directions for your own personal leadership growth, in the summer we did the leadership wheel. And in your leadership wheel, we talked about what are the things that you are doing as part of your role, and how are you spending your time? And do you need to do more or less, or what areas did you want to grow? And in that, you set a learning intention. And you thought about, I wonder which leadership standard this lives in. Now you've also done your initial self-assessment. So you've got two pieces of data here. One is, how do you spend your time and your energy in your work? And the other is taking a look at how you feel you're doing in your self-assessment. And the reason self-assessment is so important, and that reflective position, that balcony position, is because you're the only one that is going to be able to make those shifts and changes. Nobody can tell you to change. The best kind of change is when you decide, you develop that awareness of yourself, you develop consciousness around something, and you decide, I think I need to shift and grow this. I think I'm going to learn a bit more about it. I'm going to have conversations with people, and then I'm going to try a few things. And really the only change is an identity change within yourself when you self-assess and then move on. So you've got those two tools. You've done your self-assessment and you've got your leadership wheel. And now we're going to invite you to go back to your triads. How many minutes do we have now?
5.
So you're going to go into your triads. I'm sorry that this part is rushed. I was hoping that we would have more time for you to spend on it. To take a look at the convergence of your self-assessment and your leadership wheel, and ask yourself, consider these things. How do I spend my time? And in my initial self-assessment, what areas of personal growth stood out for me? How do those two things intersect? And how might I want to grow and focus my support and growth and development for my school, right? Because we need to be doing that for our school's benefit. We all can have professional goals that are personal to ourselves, but in this context, we're looking for the growth of our school to impact that student learning in our schools. So we're going to be putting you back into your rooms for about a few minutes just to talk about these things, and then we'll come back and close.
There you go.
We can continue these conversations later.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah, because it's really something that you can't, like this would take about a few minutes each.
They're all out.
Okay. We know that that was a bit of a rushed conversation, and we're really hoping that you may be able to take some of those prompts and bring them into your triad groups so that you can spend a bit more time exploring those with each other. And that way too, you can bring those, some people who haven't done their self-assessments could do them, and then bring out that leadership wheel that you've got and just start looking at the intersections. How am I spending my time? Is that where I want to grow? And so when we're looking at setting goals, this is something I do with my staff all the time, is I ask them not to set a goal, but to set an intention. And when we live our life with intention, do our job with intention, we usually don't have the rigidity of, I've set this goal, this is the way I want to do it, this is the way we're going to do it. Because when we're leading learning's messy, working with people is messy. And so sometimes just really being grounded in your intentions can support that openness to all of the things that come your way. And that's really setting an intention. Sometimes when we set a goal and we've thought it out so clearly and thoughtfully that we can actually satisfy that in our brain, that we don't actually have to do the work now because we've already had it happen in our head. But when we set an intention to be a certain way, to learn a certain way, to create in a certain way, or to collaborate in a certain way, then we start creating those opportunities. Those are goals. I want to create a learning environment that we have collaborators and that we all co-create together. So I've got to set intentions personally to do that work. And that's where you get those living into your beliefs and your values. And when you live in your beliefs and your values, you start to grow the capabilities to support that. When you grow those capabilities and you open up how much capacity you have to be a creator or a collaborator, if that's the intention you've set, then your behaviors start to follow. And then when you've got those behaviors, then you start creating those environments that support those things in your environment. And all of those can be an identity shift. Sometimes, especially with this new curriculum, we used to see teachers as a deliverer of education. We saw the principal as the leader, the person who set the rules. And all of the new curriculum is asking an identity shift. Now we're facilitators of learning. We're collaborators of culture. We grow those things. And so I invite you to think about setting some strong intentions for your work and really thinking about how you might live into those intentions. And so we're going to move on and hand over to Peter to close today with some of the things to keep in mind as you move forward.
So we know it's going to be really busy for you guys and for all of us. So we don't have our next session is not until the self-directed, where we will team up with our triads in a group of 3 to have and prepare and record a session that will be made available to participants to view. You can see that. We have session 4, that would be October 11th, where we get back online here. So it's really, we're giving you the September piece to get the school startup going. We'll touch base our October 10th, your October 11th. That was the next time we'll do one of these. But in the meantime, also, we have 5 individual coaching sessions that will happen. And that's when we will talk to our team and see how you guys are doing, what's going on. I want to find out how Lucille did with her big presentation, and we'll get all that information, and then we come back again at our next webinar after that on November 8th. So these are all things you should be marked in your calendar, and hopefully we can touch base, and we'll get more. If you don't have the dates and you want to see the full schedule, just call up this slide deck and it will be posted as well. And all these last slides have all the different times again. So it goes right down to December 13th. And we're overtime, so I don't want to keep you much. And I know you've got staff, students, and kids knocking at your door. So we're very cognizant of that. So we want to just say, if you have any questions, don't ever hesitate to contact any of us. We look forward to talking to you in the future, and touching base with you with our groups. And have a great startup if you haven't started up already.
Good luck, everybody.
And if you have any questions, just let us know.
Type in any final comments as we leave.
And if you have any questions or comments, just put them in the chat. We review that and make sure that we get back to you ASAP.
Yeah, great.
So,
great
awesome.
to see you all.
Thank you,
Have a good
guys.
startup. Yeah, have a great startup.
Yeah. Have a great long weekend. If you guys get a long weekend, we have a long weekend. See you guys.
Could you go back to the 5th and 6th session dates? I just wanted to let you guys know that in China, there's a national holiday, which for some schools, it's going to be earlier, but for Maple Leaf, I know we're going to be unavailable on the September 28th, all the way up to October 5th. I can't hear you. You guys are muted.
Go.
No, I'm saying that's a great holiday. That sounds like some time off. That's nice.
Yeah, it's 1 week long. So if you guys are planning for something for that Friday, just be aware that a lot of people will not be near any internet.
I don't think we have anything on that Friday.
So there won't be any webinars. It'll be individual coaching calls, and hoping that you and your triads will have arranged times to connect with each other, which hopefully you'll have each other's schedules. So I know a lot of you were figuring that out. We encouraged you on the last day in July to make a bit of a schedule. So I'm hoping you've got that in place, but we'll follow up when we reach out to you.
But Richard, I expect you to be talking to you on that day. No, I'm just kidding.
I sent you WeChat messages. You didn't reply.
You did? Well, I've been here.
What it does.
That's great.
So we want-
Okay, that's good information for us, and we'll certainly work around it. No problem.
Before September.
Yeah, I just want to let you know. Anyway,
Thank you so much. No, thank you, Richard. Take care.
Take care.
Oh, it's nice to get off that stool.